We got so many emails from our viewers talking about the president being successful in a number of things over the course of the 150 days. Today's 150th day. But we got a lot of emails pushing back on Congress, saying, why aren't the Republicans in Congress getting on board? They were actually giving Democrats credit, saying they're on board, they're loyal to one another, and they're attacking Republicans, and it's working. But what does the president need to do to get Congress on board? Because there are some major issues that need to be passed, too.
You're absolutely right that there have just been so many accomplishments, close to 40 pieces of legislation, these executive orders. You saw the president in Miami just on Friday rolling back Cuban policies that President Obama put in there that really benefit the Cuban regime, not the Cuban people. We stand with the Cuban people. We don't want U.S. money to go to the Cuban regime, the military, the intelligence, and then they repress their own people. On Friday, we had the first White House meeting of the Opioid Commission. If you filled up every seat in Yankee Stadium, Ainsley, that's how many people die of drug overdoses in this country a year, 33,000 of them through opioid abuse. So this is, no demographic has been spared, no state has been untouched by this. So you're talking about economic numbers, confidence numbers, rolling back the regulatory framework, getting health care passed in the House. Now, what the president is doing with the Congress is working with Leader McConnell and the others who are drafting the Senate version of the health care bill. They're in very close touch. Everybody knows what those principles are, and we should remind people every day what Obamacare has not done for many Americans. In just the last week or 10 days, we have headlines out of 5 states, Maine, Michigan, North Carolina, New Hampshire. You see that, and Delaware, Joe Biden's Delaware, where one of the insurers has said they want a 1/3 increase in the premiums next year. So we have to remind people why we're trying to solve this problem of Obamacare to begin with, but working with the Congress when we can, doing things through executive order when we can. You're right about the Democrats being unified, but they're unified in opposition. They're hashtag resistance. And we would love to get Democratic votes on health care, on the tax break,
but the Republicans
on infrastructure.
You know, their timetable doesn't seem to be lined up with the president's, because we've heard, okay, they'd like to get something done, you know, in the rearview mirror. They would have already liked to have had the new Obamacare thing on the plate and pass it in the Senate. Now they're saying maybe by the 4th of July, maybe by the end of the summer. When it comes to tax reform, maybe by the end of the year, maybe next year.
Steve, do you know anybody that moves at Donald Trump's pace? Because I've not met them.
Well, the problem for the Republicans in Congress, though, is if they don't get stuff done, they're not going to get a job in 2 years, or less than a year and a half, when everybody's up for re-election in the House. I
don't think anybody's thinking, or they shouldn't be thinking about next year's midterm elections. They should really be thinking about putting the solutions. They ought not to, and here's why. If you do your job well, you get reelected. If people feel like you've had a positive impact on their lives and you've put together the solutions, you've put them forth and you've passed them the way the president is doing, then you will get reelected. In the meantime, though, your point is correct in that Washington moves at a very different pace than a disruptor and a businessman like Donald Trump, who's very used to making decisions in the business world, taking account many inputs and insights and ideas, and then weighing the consequences and the actions and executing on them. So when he says drain the swamp, it's not just get rid of all the crocodiles in the water that we don't need there. It's also moving at a different pace. And so we hope that the Congress will do. I actually feel very positive that we'll get health care and taxes passed this year.
I know it's optimism, but it's going to be a lot of arm twisting. Right now, we understand this week the Democrats might try to shut down the entire Senate and stop all business, just not show up to work because it's not been dealt into the health care deliberations. But did the president really say to Republicans that he thought the House bill was mean? And do you think that is affecting what the Senate's doing?
I wasn't in that particular meeting, and people in the meeting are loath to disclose what was said there. But you saw the president after the House passed health care reform. The first step, big step toward repealing and replacing Obamacare was something better, Brian, that he's very supportive of getting rid of Obamacare and having something in place that actually helps people, especially the people, the same ones he's helping with these new apprenticeship programs, frankly. Those small business owners, the plumbers, and the hairdressers and the farmers, the people who don't benefit from government-sponsored benefits or from employer-sponsored benefits. So he's there to help them. And no, I don't think that that's affecting the Democrats. The Democrats are still affected by the election results. That's very clear. Those who constantly ask, will you accept the election results, clearly still have not. It's hashtag resistance, including Hillary Clinton, who basically plays a game of spin the bottle, who do I blame today? And the faster they get on board with the fact that he's the president and that this is his agenda moving forward, we would love Democratic votes. We're yet to see a single one come up up and support the way Democratic senators supported George W. Bush for his big tax overhaul.
So let's talk about what's happening with the president's going to make a major speech, according to Jay Sekulow, this week, and it will include mostly about Russia. What's the message? I'm going to leave it to the lawyers and move on from here. What do you think his message is, this comprehensive speech he's going to give?
Well, we'll let the president put forth his
Can you
message, but
preview
let's review what he's already said about it. That there's no obstruction of justice, he's not under investigation, there's no collusion, it's a witch hunt. He's made very clear that we've had months and months and months of investigation on top of the FBI, several House and Senate committees investigating the same thing. And you've got people even that have not always been sympathetic towards President Trump.
Like David Brooks of the New York Times.
Openly questioning, where will this lead us? And I want to say something else. We're starting to waste tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer money on this endeavor. And if there's something there, let's hear about it. The president has said, let the investigation go forward. And Jim Comey testified that the president was not under investigation. The president said that Comey had told him that 3 times in the letter he put forward when he removed Mr. Comey from his job. So what are we talking about here, really, when the president is trying to move on with the policies and the solutions of the day? I think this is part of the resistance and the obstruction.
Dallas Woodhouse, you talk about how much money is being wasted on this. Dallas Woodhouse, he agrees with you. He said that politics and government should not matter this much. This is what happens when the government gets too big and there's too much control. Now, yesterday, Chris Wallace was questioning Jay Sekulow, who's President Trump's attorney, and because the president tweeted on Friday, I am being investigated for firing the FBI director by the man who told me to fire the FBI director. Witch hunt. So Chris Wallace was asking Jay, he said, the president's even saying I'm under investigation. Is he under investigation? Jay Wallace said, no, 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 there is no investigation.
Well, and that's the president's personal lawyer. He's saying that nobody has ever notified the president that he's under investigation. In fact, Mr. Comey himself has said that he is not. And what Jay Sekulow went on to say is that that's the president responding to a Washington Post report that included 5 anonymous sources.
Right.
And that's the president in his 140 characters through his significant social media platform, Ainsley, telling everybody, wow, look at the irony here.
Yeah, right. And then you've got the Assistant Attorney General last week, Rod Rosenstein, saying in a memo that was released to the press, it said, essentially, don't believe everything you read in the newspapers, considering they don't reveal the source or the agency or even the country. And then you've got an ABC report. Yesterday, their senior judicial correspondent, Pierre Thomas, said that there has been no decision on whether or not to mount an investigation of President Trump, which is exactly what Jay Sekulow said yesterday.
That's right. And he's the president's personal attorney, so of course he's read into all of this. This is all a conclusion in search of evidence, it seems. And if the president, the president has a right to respond. He has a right to defend himself this way. If you were in a court of law, so the prosecution rests, the defense will now have, there's nothing like that here. You have an FBI director testifying in front of 20 million viewers.
Can I ask you finally, are you as concerned as Newt Gingrich, or is the president as concerned as Newt Gingrich about the makeup of Robert Mueller's team and the Democratic donations that are clearly there and their background?
I think it's relevant information that the public should have. And so if we're going to talk about transparency and accountability and who all the players are here, I think it's relevant that people know that Mr. Mueller's team includes folks who gave significant amounts of money. One person I read gave more money than a single mom makes in over a year just to Hillary Clinton. Speaker Gingrich says that one of them was actually opposing the FOIA request for the Clinton Foundation. So that's relevant information for people to have.
All right. Kellyanne, thank you very much for dropping by.
Thank you, Kellyanne.
Okay, now